Hey guys, it's Sam, and welcome to my channel. So I'm going to do something different and have decided to begin a series I call the ABCs. This series is going to be a shit ton of random stuff that I've been interested in and researched and then put in alphabetical order. And that brings us to the letter of the day! Woo! The letter of the day, the letter of the day, the letter of the day is A. So we are going to kick it off with something pretty far out, because why not? Aliens. But not aliens really. We are going to talk about a man named George Adamski, the first alien contactee and occult leader. Disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only. So we begin our story at the beginning and also across the Atlantic to Poland. We finally end our beginning at... I'm going to say that wrong. So George Adamski was born one of 5 kids to Polish parents. In his early years, his family immigrated to the United States to plant roots in New York State. He later enlisted in the Army in the 13th Cavalry during the Mexican Revolution, where he served until 1916. In 1917, he found love with a woman named Mary Shembursky. After marrying her, they moved west. George held a variety of employment during his early years, such as maintenance at Yellowstone National Park, flour mill worker, and working at a concrete factory. It wasn't until the 1920s when Mr. Adamski found his true calling, the occult. It was booming in California during these times, you see, and George just had gotten all caught up in esoteric religion called Theosophy and then Neo-Theosophy. Theosophy teaches that there is an ancient and secretive brotherhood of spiritual adepts known as the Masters, who, although found across the world, are centered in Tibet. Neo-Theosophy was originally a derogatory term used to demonate the system of theosophical ideas following the death of the original leader, Madame Blavatsky. I don't really know what that means. And I know I'm oversimplifying the entire religion into literally one sentence. Forgive my ignorance, but I did want to provide some sort of information for it, even if it was very minimal. But we move on. So, it's the 1930s. Mr. Adamski is a busy little bee, and he became a minor figure on the California occult scene and even founded the Royal Order of Tibet, which had a government license to make wine during the Prohibition for religious purposes. He was said to have stated, "I have made enough wine for all of Southern California." Few years pass and pow, it's 1944. George, his wife, and some friends decide they want to buy a little plot of land. So they purchase 20 acres of land at the base of Palomar Mountain, which has an observatory. At the base of the observatory, for which they own, Adamski and friends built a campground they named Palomar Gardens and a restaurant called Palomar Gardens Cafe. Well, at his campground and cafe, George would often give lectures on Eastern philosophy to students and tourists alike. George even built a telescope on the grounds, and sometimes he was referred to as Professor, which he did not dispute, despite having only a 3rd grade education. Okay, so here is when weird stuff starts happening. Well, weirder. 2 years go by since they purchased the land and made all their stuff, okay? And it's 1946. Meteor shower hits. And what comes out during that meteor shower? A mothership. Cigar-shaped and witnessed by who? George and his friends. Then, 1947, Adamski claimed to have photographed a mothership transposing the moon over Palomar Gardens. Mr. Man over here also claimed that one night he saw 187 UFOs pass over Palomar Gardens. Now keep in mind, it's 1947. 1947. This stuff was unheard of. By 1949, Mr. Adamski started noticing the monetary gain and started charging a fee for lectures he would give. He would have fantastical claims such as the government had established the existence of UFOs 2 years earlier, 1947, and that science knows all planets in the solar system are inhabited. On May 29th, 1950, George Adamski took a photograph of 6 UFOs in the sky in flying formation. This picture was used as an August 1978 commemorative stamp by the island of Grenada to mark the year of UFOs. Now, as exciting as all that other crap was, because you know it was, those outrageous claims are not what George Adamski is known for. It was one night in his life that would change his life forever. I have special footage from that memorable day. Footage that no one else has. What I'm about to show you may shock some viewers. What I'm about to show you is the original, edited, one of a kind, totally reenacted / made up statements made by George Adamski regarding the incident on the night of November 20th, 1952. George and several friends were hanging out at the Colorado Desert Center. All of a sudden, there in the sky was a large cigar-shaped object just hovering in the sky. George thought out loud, "That thing looks like it's here for me." "Huh?" replied his friends. And George broke off from the safe group of friends to walk off into the desert towards the hovering craft. At a distance, a scout ship made of translucent metal landed close to him. There, its pilot appeared, Orthon, he called himself. He walked towards George Adamski, who is just a little bit away. George turned around and waved to his buddies. "Can you believe this?" he whispered. His friends just stared at him, so, they all saw this happen. When George brought his attention back to the alien spacecraft that just landed in front of him, and its occupant that descended and walked towards him, Adamski thought to himself, "The beauty of his form surpasses anything I had ever seen." Orthon paused for a moment, Adamski not realizing that Orthon had telepathy. Then Orthon continued towards George. George A. continued to think to himself, "The pleasantness of his face has freed me of all thought of my personal self. I feel like a little child in the presence of one with great wisdom and much love." Orthon stopped in front of George. He then reached out towards George, and together they touched palms. Adamski went total fanboy all over Orthon, his thoughts wild. At Orthon's touch, George said, "Your flesh is as soft as a baby's. Your hair is sandy in color and hangs in beautiful waves to your shoulders, glistening more beautifully than any woman's I have ever seen." Orthon clears his throat. "Thanks. So I've got something to tell you. Earthlings should stop messing around with atomic bombs," he told Adamski. before they destroy your entire planet." Then Orthon said, "Boom, boom." So, Orthon was medium height, humanoid, long blonde hair, and tan skin. He wore red-brown shoes, and his trousers were not like mine, Adamski noted. They didn't speak with their mouth holes. They spoke with woke minds via telepathy. Oh, whoops, and he was from the planet Venus, a Venusian. Now, during this encounter, Orthon requested a photographic plate from George, which I guess George had, but would not let him use. "No pics," Orthon said. Then, after Orthon warns Adamski about nukes and takes a picture plate, he leaves. Adamski creates a plaster of a shoe print from Orthon, and apparently it has symbols, and he claimed was a message from Orthon, but I couldn't find that message. So maybe BS. Maybe all of this is BS. Anyways, so that encounter happened November 20th, 1952, remember? And on December 13th, about a month later, Orthon returned with what? The photographic plate. That, when developed, had a ton of strange symbols, which I couldn't find an image of. But George Adamski, that clever old guy, took out his 6-inch telescope and snapped a picture of the scout ship. Skeptics say it looks a lot like the top of a chicken brooder for warming newly hatched poultry. Agreed. Then, in 1954, Mary, George Adamski's wife, remember her? She died. I don't know how or where, other than the date. A little while after her death, a filmmaker contacted George Adamski to learn about his experience. The filmmaker, named Desmond Leslie, was interested in combining his research with George's experience into a book called Flying Saucers Have Landed, which later became a bestseller. George invited Desmond to come to his ranch, Palomar Gardens, and this is where Desmond witnessed several UFOs, even writing a letter to his wife. "A beautiful golden ship in the sunset, but brighter than any sunset. It slowly faded out the way they do." Okay. So, about their book. Inside their writings, the men claimed that Nordic-looking aliens noticed the blonde Barbies, visited Earth, and are worried about nuclear bomb testing, that it would kill all life and spread radiation into space and contaminate other planets. The men explained that the aliens worshipped Creator of all, and that Earthlings' understanding is shallow, and we know very little of the Creator. Okay. Now it's 1955. George Adamski has written another book. Exciting! Called Inside the Spaceships. Can you guess what this book is about? Yup! We're going in a spaceship! Orthon arranges for Adamski to go on a little solar system tour. Bloop. So they leave Earth and travel to Venus. Remember, that is where Orthon is from. It is here that Orthon explained to Adamski that his wife was reincarnated here, on Venus. And that is and that's all we're going to hear about her. So we blow over George's wife and tell a tale about another trip he went on. I think he took a few spacecations, or many, or a ton. I'm not really sure. Sorry. But on one trip, George met a 1,000-year-old elder philosopher of space people called Master. He and Master spoke a lot and discussed philosophy, religion, and Earth's place in the universe. Master told George that he was special to the Nordic aliens, as he felt he was the one, like Neo from the Matrix, to deliver this message to Earth people, and so did other people, like Jesus. You know, Jesus was one of those people. He delivered the Nordic message. Jesus. Okay. So he claimed he would meet up with Nordic aliens who were living on Earth at bars and restaurants in Southern California. The main story that he promoted was that the other planets were inhabited by handsome, spiritually involved beings who have moved beyond the problems of Earth people. So, all of this talk and discussion in public led many others to come forward with their own tales of interplanetary travels with what they called the Space Brothers. In 1957, Adamski revealed that he received a letter that would corroborate his story. He was very proud of the endorsement and exhibited it to support his claims. That letter was from R.E. Straith, representative of Cultural Exchange Committee of the U.S. State Department. The letter stated that he knew Adamski had made extraterrestrial contact in the California desert in 1952, and that a group of highly placed government officials planned to publicly corroborate his story. Nearly 30 years go by, 1985, and UFO researcher James Moseley revealed the letter was a hoax, and that he and Gray Barker stole letterhead from the State Department, creating the persona of R.E. Straith, wrote the letter to Adamski as a prank. The FBI investigated the case and did indeed find it to be a hoax. No files were charged against Moseley or Barker. So some time passes and the FBI stops over to Adamski's house and tells him to stop claiming that the FBI endorsed the claims because it was fake. Stop claiming the FBI is claiming the fakes are real. To make sure that Adamski understands that they are serious, they have him sign a letter stating that he knew the implications of making false claims and that the FBI did not endorse the claims of individuals. Even with these threats, George claimed he was cleared by the government and still displayed his signed letter as proof. After the FBI learned he was displaying this letter, they confiscated his copy and read the Riot Act to him, warned him that legal action would be taken against him if he continued, and Adamski stated that the government warned him to keep quiet. George Adamski's history with the government did not stop there. In 1959, the head of the Dutch Unidentified Flying Object Society informed him that Queen Juliana of the Netherlands would like to receive him. Her court and advisors requested she revoke her invitation, to which she rejected. The newspapers at the time reported, "Once again, Queen Juliana's weakness for the preternatural has landed her back in the headlines. She had invited to the palace a crackpot from California who numbered among his friends men from Mars, Venus, and other solar system suburbs." Ooh, burn. His story comes to an end on April 23rd, 1965. At age 74, George gave a lecture in Washington, D.C. Following this, he drove about 25 minutes to a friend's house in Silver Spring, Maryland, and there he died of heart attack. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. It was later revealed that Project Blue Book, United States Air Force investigative UFO reports from 1952 to 1970, sent Captain Ruppelt to investigate Adamski's UFO claims. The captain went undercover, dressed as a civilian, to California's Palomar Mountain Cafe. It was here that he would listen to Adamski's lectures. The captain noted incognito, he is a talented con artist whose stories were designed to make money from his gullible followers and listeners. Some followers would pay George to retell his stories. The captain noted people would purchase merchandise after lectures, such as photographs of UFOs Adamski had taken. The captain noted that by 1960, Adamski had become a wealthy man. He made enough money from his lectures and books that he was able to close his restaurant and live on a big ranch. The end. So that was the very weird story of George Adamski. He definitely made a name for himself. And I'm pretty sure most of this was true. Okay, bye! Merved.